Friends, before starting the story, if you are new to my channel, then please like this video and subscribe to the channel, and also tell me in the comments where you are listening to this story from. I never really believed in ghosts before that summer. I used to laugh whenever people talked about seeing things on lonely highways or hearing whispers in old motels. Growing up in Ohio, I thought ghost stories were just something people told around bonfires to distract themselves from their own boring lives. But all of that changed the night I left Chicago and took the long road south, trying to escape a past that was catching up to me. It was supposed to be a simple road trip, nothing more than a drive through some of America's forgotten back roads, the kind of trip travel vloggers make to rediscover themselves. Only mine didn't end in inspiration. If you're listening to me now, reading what I managed to write down, you'll believe me when I tell you there are places in America you should never stop, never drive through, and never look back at once you've passed them. This is my story, and I swear on everything I have left, it happened exactly the way I'm about to tell it. I left Chicago on a Thursday evening. My old Ford Escape was loaded with a duffel bag, a box of protein bars, and 2 bottles of whiskey I'd promised myself were only for motel nights. I wasn't running from the police or anything like that, but I was definitely running. My ex had found out things I didn't want her to know, about money I'd borrowed from the wrong people, about late-night deals in alleys that weren't exactly legal. I figured putting a few hundred miles between myself and the city would buy me some time. The plan was simple: drive from Illinois down through Missouri, maybe cut across into Arkansas, and eventually make my way to New Orleans. A wandering road trip, nothing fixed. Just me, my car, the road, and the kind of silence you can only find when you leave everything behind. My first stop was supposed to be St. Louis. I had motel reservations for just one night. But around midnight, after hours of driving through endless Midwest flatlands, I got this weird urge to skip past, like something was whispering, "Don't stop here, keep moving." And so I did. It was around 1:30 a.m. when I realized I hadn't seen another car for nearly an hour. That alone wasn't so strange. America is filled with dead stretches of highway, where the only signs of life are half-burnt gas stations and oversized signs promising trucker coffee. But on Highway 67, somewhere deep in Missouri, I realized the road itself had taken on a different weight. The first thing I noticed were the trees. Missouri backroads are usually thick with green, oak, hickory, pine. But these trees stood heavy and strangled, their branches drooping low, as if leaning into the road to watch me pass. My headlights seemed to carve tunnels through the dark, and every so often, I swore I saw shadowy figures dart between the trees. Then came the fog. Thin at first, like a smoke haze, but it thickened until I couldn't see more than 50 feet ahead. I slowed down, leaning forward, knuckles tight on the steering wheel. Somewhere in the fog, I thought I heard a low hum, something like a chorus of voices, but faint, buried inside the mist. I rolled down the window, letting the night air slap against me, trying to convince myself it was all an illusion. Maybe exhaustion was playing tricks. Maybe I was hitting that dangerous stage of highway hypnosis truckers always warn about. But then, my headlights caught it. A figure, standing dead center in the road. She couldn't have been more than 16 or 17, pale as the moon, eyes wide, wearing a dirty white dress that looked soaked at the bottom. Her hair hung in tangled clumps, dripping with something. I don't want to say water, but that's the easiest thing to believe it was. She didn't move as my car screeched to a halt, the tires screaming against asphalt. My heart hammered so hard I thought it would burst through my ribs. Jesus Christ, I muttered, throwing the vehicle into park. She just stood there, her eyes reflecting my headlights like two glass marbles. I honked once. She didn't flinch. Slowly, I cracked the door and stepped out. The fog curled around me, carrying the smell of wet earth. I opened my mouth to shout, but my voice came out weak. "You okay?" No answer, not even a blink.
I cautiously took 2 steps closer. That's when my headlights flickered, first dimming, then surging back on. And in that half-second of darkness, I swear her face twisted. For the briefest instant, I didn't see a teenage girl. I saw something older, sharper, grinning. When the light came back, it was her again. No, not her. Because now, she was gone. Just gone. The road stretched empty in front of me. My chest heaved as I scrambled back into the driver's seat. I slammed the locks down, jammed the car into drive, and pressed the accelerator hard. The Ford roared like never before, and I promised myself I would not stop until I saw civilization again. That's when the radio turned on. I hadn't touched it, not once the entire trip, but there it was, crackling to life, static flooding the speakers, and in that static was a voice. "Don't leave." The voice was faint, broken, like it came from underwater. Male, old. Then it grew stronger. "You shouldn't be here." I slammed the radio off. 10 seconds later, it turned itself back on. This time, music played. Tinny, old-fashioned, like something out of a gramophone. A woman sang, her voice cracked and distant. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like an old lullaby. I hit the power again, harder this time until the knob cracked beneath my palm. The music kept playing. I almost ditched the car right there, ready to throw myself into the foggy woods just to get away from the sound. But where the hell would I go? I must have driven 30 more miles with that broken lullaby buzzing through the speakers before something finally appeared out of the white haze. A neon sign glowing faintly ahead. Betty's Diner, open 24 a.m. Relief washed through me. Civilization, people, witnesses. I pulled my Ford into the cracked parking lot, half expecting the car to stall. Strangely, the radio went silent the instant I shifted into park. The lullaby cut off mid-note. The diner looked like it hadn't changed since the 1960s. Red vinyl booths, chrome trim, a long counter lined with dusty spinning stools. But there was light inside, and behind the counter stood a woman in a pale pink waitress uniform. She looked middle-aged, hair pinned up, lipstick too bright under the fluorescent tubes. I slid into a booth near the window and tried to steady my hands. She noticed immediately. "Long night?" she asked, her voice smooth, almost rehearsed. "Yeah," I muttered. "Highway fog. Thought I saw... Never mind. "Can I get a coffee?" She smiled, poured from a tall glass pot, and slid the cup across. As I took the first shaky sip, I realized something. There was no sound in the diner. No hum of refrigerators, no clink of utensils, no music. Nothing but my breaths and the faint buzz of the lights above me. Then I noticed the wall clock above the counter. It wasn't moving. The diner clock ticked exactly once when I looked at it, and then it froze again. Both hands pointed toward 3:17, as if time itself had given up. I kept sipping the coffee, pretending not to notice. The waitress hadn't moved from behind the counter. She stood very still, both hands folded, watching me in a way that wasn't exactly unfriendly, but wasn't human either. "Good coffee?" she asked. I nodded, though it tasted off, earthy, metallic, like the smell of wet coins rubbed together. Something deep in my gut screamed for me to walk out, but my legs wouldn't move just yet. I needed to ground myself in something ordinary after what I'd seen on the highway. A coffee in a diner, a waitress, a booth. This was America. This was normal, right? "Passing through?" she asked. "Road trip, trying to make it to Louisiana." Her painted smile widened. "Long stretch, lot of roads between here and there you don't want to take." I swallowed. "Yeah, what roads?" She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Some roads take you where you want to go. Others take you where they want you to go." Before I could ask who they were, the door creaked open behind me. Bells jingled overhead. I turned, expecting another late-night traveler, but nobody stood in the doorway. The door swung open on its rusted hinge, hanging wide into the fog, before easing shut again, bells clinking a second time. And then I realized something that froze my blood. The waitress hadn't looked at the door at all. The air grew heavy inside the diner. My skin prickled as I noticed shadows at the far booths. At first, I thought they were empty, but with each blink, something shifted. Shapes formed. People. Across the room sat a man in an old trucker's cap, staring at a plate of eggs he wasn't eating. His entire body shimmered faintly, like heat ripples on hot asphalt. 2 booths down, a thin woman in 1950s makeup smoked a cigarette that released no smoke. And in the very back, a family of 4, mother, father, 2 kids, sat perfectly still, faces blank, their uneaten meals rotting on the plates. The longer I looked, the less solid they seemed, almost transparent. Ghosts.
The realization made bile rise up in my throat. I pushed back from the booth too fast, coffee spilling across the table. "I gotta go." The waitress's smile never left. "Of course you do." As I hurried for the door, she called after me, her voice sharp as glass nails. "Don't forget to tip." The bells jangled as I shoved the door open and burst into the night. The moment I stepped outside, the fog wrapped tight around me again. My car waited in the lot under the flickering neon, but the air smelled different now. Damp, rotten. My steps echoed on the oily pavement, though I realized I wasn't making that many footsteps. Another set of footfalls followed, behind me. I froze, every hair on my neck electric. Slowly, I turned my head. There was nothing. I bolted for the Ford, yanking the door open and slamming it behind me. My breath came fast as I stabbed at the ignition. The engine coughed, stuttered, then roared to life. But in that moment, in the rearview mirror, I saw it again. The girl in white. She stood not 10 feet from the back of my car. Her soaking hair hung over her face now, stringy and dripping. Her arms dangled limply at her sides, fingers brushing the ground. And though her lips never moved, the glass fogged from the inside with 2 words written across it, clear as day. Take me. I drove. God, I don't even know how long. The Ford ate up the miles, headlights carving through endless waves of fog. I didn't stop, didn't check the map, didn't answer the radio when it sparked and whispered again. But eventually, I knew I was lost. Highway signs blurred by, most of them blank, some scrawled over with graffiti I couldn't even read. When the mist finally relented, the night sky above me was a bruised purple, and the road beneath my wheels had changed from smooth asphalt to cracked black top with weeds poking between the splits. Then I saw the sign. Welcome to Hollow Creek. No population number, no state name. Just 2 words carved into weather-eaten wood. My gut sank. I wasn't supposed to be here. The town crept up like a ghost. Street lamps lined the crooked road, but each one hummed faintly before sputtering out as I passed. Houses sat along the sidewalks, but every last one was abandoned. Doors hanging open, windows shattered, porches rotting. But the strangest thing, the town wasn't silent. Somewhere out there, a radio played. Same old gramophone music, a sweet crackling lullaby echoing from nowhere and everywhere, spilling between the buildings with no clear source. As I drove through the main street, I saw them. People, or rather the shapes of them. They stood in shadows like mannequins, men in fedoras, women in polka dot dresses, children holding faded stuffed animals. They didn't move, didn't breathe. They just watched. Every eye on me as my car rolled past. And then, one by one, they began to smile. My fuel light blinked on. Perfect timing. I gritted my teeth and spotted a rusted old gas station a block away, a peeling sign that read, Murphy's Fill-Up, Ethel available. Probably hadn't serviced a car since the 1970s, but my options were zero. I pulled into the lot, engine rumbling into silence. The pump was old with manual dials, numbers faded, nozzle rusted. Still, I figured if anything in this cursed place worked, it had to be the gas station. I stepped out, the air hitting me with a smell like mildew and spoiled milk. The fog thickened again, swirling around the station as though it was alive. Need a hand? The voice came from the shadows. I spun left, fists clenched. Out stepped a man in grease-stained overalls, his name tag barely legible, Murphy. He looked like your usual small-town mechanic, except for one thing. His face. It was smeared black with oil, or maybe ash, but as he drew closer, I realized it wasn't smeared. That was his skin. Cracked dark, like burned wood after a fire, glowing faintly red between the cracks. I just need gas, I whispered. Murphy's mouth stretched into something that wasn't a smile. Oh, we'll fill you right up. He grabbed the pump, and what came out wasn't gasoline. It was thick, pitch-black liquid bubbling like tar. It splattered against the inside of my tank, hissing like acid. The smell made me gag, sulfur and rot, and something raw, like flesh gone bad. Don't worry, he croaked, his glowing cracks pulsing with light. This'll get you going further than you ever planned. I stumbled back, hands shaking. Stop!" He didn't stop. The nozzle shook in his hands as tar overflowed, running down the side of my car, smoking where it touched the paint.
That was when I heard them. Footsteps. From the street, dozens of figures shuffled closer, the same ghostly townsfolk I'd seen earlier, their smiles wide and hollow. They circled the lot, surrounding me, watching. I bolted. Back into the driver's seat, I slammed the door, jammed the keys, and prayed. The engine coughed, then roared, alive. The car jolted forward as I slammed the pedal. The nozzle ripped from my tank, spraying black liquid across the station, and Murphy's body caught fire like dry wood. And then, the gas station. No, the entire block erupted behind me in flame and smoke. I don't know how I made it out. The Ford rattled as if every last bolt was fighting to shake loose. My rear view showed Hollow Creek burning, the fog glowing red behind me, shadows writhing inside the smoke. But here's the worst part. The road didn't end. No matter how many miles I drove, the cracked, weed-choked blacktop stretched on. No signs, no exits, no other towns. Just me, the Ford, and the strange, endless highway. And sometimes, when the static buzzed again in the speakers, I swore the voice whispered closer. "You can leave Hollow Creek, but Hollow Creek won't leave you." I thought if I just kept driving, I'd eventually find my way out. That's the rule of the road, right? Highways always lead somewhere. Doesn't matter if it's another state, another city, another broken-down diner. Every road in America connects to something. But this one didn't. After the fire, after Hollow Creek disappeared behind me like a nightmare, I expected the blacktop to eventually merge back into a state highway. Signs, green markers, mileposts, billboards, something that tethered me back to reality. Instead, the road just wound on. I lost track of hours, or maybe days. It was impossible to tell. My phone battery had long since drained, and the dashboard clock blinked nonsense numbers every time I glanced at it. 4:92, 11:63. Time itself didn't exist here. I tried to distract myself. Food, water, radio silenced by ripping out the wires, but after a while the silence pressed too hard, forcing me to hum to myself just to feel human. And maybe that's why I noticed her sooner this time. The girl, standing by the roadside again, same soaked white dress, same hair plastered across her face, only this time, her face was clearer. She looked younger than before. 13, maybe. Her skin pale, lips trembling blue, as if she'd been pulled out of a frozen river. And she wasn't just standing there, she had her thumb out. Hitchhiking. My foot slammed the brake before I even realized it. Gravel crunched beneath the tires. The Ford idled in the fog while I gripped the wheel hard enough to snap bones. "No," I whispered. "Not again." But then she spoke. Her voice wasn't old and terrifying this time. It was small, broken. "Please?" That was it. One word. Against every ounce of instinct, I reached across and popped the passenger door. She climbed in without looking at me, dripping water into the seat, dress clinging to it like seaweed. She folded her hands neatly in her lap, eyes fixed straight ahead. I drove. Minutes, maybe hours. Neither of us spoke. Finally, I whispered, "What's your name?" Her lips barely moved. "Eleanor." The strangest thing about her wasn't the fact that she was clearly dead, or that my passenger seat was filling with a smell like rain mixed with old wood. The strangest thing was how normal she became after a while. She hummed softly to herself that same lullaby I'd heard on the diner radio. She stared at the road with distant eyes, but when I glanced at her reflection in the window, I swore sometimes she looked alive. Her hair dry, her cheeks flushed, almost human. When I finally asked what happened to her, she didn't answer. She just pointed forward with one pale finger. So I kept driving. The fog thinned eventually to reveal a squat little roadside motel with a glowing vacancy sign. The kind of place you'd see along Route 66, decked out in faded desert pink paint and a flickering neon cactus above the office. "Stop here," Eleanor whispered. I almost laughed. No chance in hell. Her head turned slowly. Her eyes locked me in, sharp and cold. "Stop here," she repeated, voice louder now, vibrating in my skull. I slammed the brake. I didn't even remember pulling into the lot. One moment I resisted, the next my Ford sat parked in front of room 6. The motel office light shone warm and inviting. I stepped out with shaky legs, Eleanor trailing behind me like a shadow. She wasn't dripping anymore. Her dress looked almost clean. Inside, a bald man sat behind the counter, flipping through a ledger. He didn't look up as I entered. "Need a room?" he asked flatly. "Yeah." He slid a brass key across the counter. No computer, no credit card machine, just a ledger, a fountain pen, and that key. Room 6.
I pushed the door open to find a perfectly ordinary motel room. 2 twin beds, floral comforters, a dresser with a greasy TV, faded carpet. For a moment, my chest loosened. Maybe this time, the nightmare had relented. Eleanor climbed onto one of the beds without asking. She curled up like a child, knees to chest, eyes slipping closed. I sat at the edge of my own bed, half expecting shadows to start crawling from the corners. But nothing happened. Hours passed in stillness. I must have drifted off around dawn, if dawn even existed in this place. When I woke, Eleanor was gone. I stormed back to the front office, half panicked, half relieved. The bald clerk still flipped through his book without raising his head. "That girl, the one with me, where'd she go?" His pen scratched across paper. "Checked out." "What the hell does that mean?" Finally, he looked up with eyes glazed milky white. "They always check out, sooner or later." He closed the ledger. The thick cover slammed shut like a coffin lid. My stomach turned. "I'm leaving," I said, stepping back. His smile crept wide. "Son, you already left." I bolted, punched the ignition, tore out of the lot, gravel spitting behind me. My knuckles cracked as I gripped the wheel, scanning every inch of roadside, waiting for Eleanor to step back into view. She didn't. Instead, something else followed me. At first, it was in the mirrors, shadows sprinting across the highway, keeping pace no matter how fast I drove. Their limbs bent wrong like broken marionettes. Then came the sound, scratching inside the doors, under the floorboards, rattling the tires. By the time I hit 60, they weren't outside anymore. They were in the back seat. I refused to look at them. My gut told me if I acknowledged them, even a glance, I'd never come back from it. But the rearview mirror showed me enough. Figures. Dozens, maybe more. packed into the car like my Ford had stretched inside, filling every space with pressed, grinning faces. Their smiles split too wide, eye sockets hollow, and all of them chanting one word in unison, a whisper that filled the car like smoke. Stay, stay, stay. I screamed, slammed both hands against the wheel, and floored the pedal. Tires screamed, the engine threatened to tear itself apart. The chanting only grew louder. Stay, stay, stay. The windshield cracked from the sound. That's when the highway bent into an old bridge. Iron rusted, boards warped, the whole damn thing stretched across a black river below. Fog clung to the water like smoke from a dying fire. The chanting figures in the back seat pounded fists against the glass now, clawing at the windows, desperate to keep me inside. The bridge creaked as my tires hit the planks, screamed like it hadn't carried weight in centuries. Halfway across, the chanting reached a deafening pitch and then stopped. Dead silence. I risked a glance at the back seat. Empty. Every last one of them was gone. The Ford rolled to a stop in the middle of the bridge. That's when I heard water dripping. From the roof, from the dashboard, from my own hair. And when I glanced in the passenger seat, she was back. Eleanor. Her lips blue, her eyes black as the water below. For the first time, she turned to face me fully. No childlike weakness now. Her voice was not small anymore. It was layered, dozens of tones speaking through one mouth. You shouldn't have left me. I gripped the wheel, shaking. I don't even know what you are. I am the road, the creek, the diner, the fire, the town. She leaned closer, breath icy. And so are you now. My chest caved with panic as the bridge groaned beneath us. Planks split, rust snapped, the whole damn thing shuddered. She smiled. Stay. The last thing I remembered was the bridge collapsing, the world flipping upside down, the taste of water filling my lungs, and her hands pulling me under. The first sensation was drowning. I kicked, flailed, fought against liquid closing around my lungs. But there was no water, no cold, just heavy, pressing darkness. I opened my eyes to find myself lying on cracked pavement, asphalt, dry. My Ford was nowhere in sight. The bridge had vanished behind me, replaced by an endless expanse of road stretching both directions into black fog. I coughed, gasped. My hands were raw as if I'd clawed at stone. My throat tasted of rust. And then I realized I wasn't alone. Figures lined the road, not moving, just standing in silence, spaced out every few feet like fence posts. Some wore clothes from decades past, greasers with slicked hair, women in bell skirts, kids in striped sweaters. Others wore modern hoodies and trucker hats. Their faces all blurred, like unfinished sketches. Their features rippled and melted when I tried to focus. One of them stepped forward, a tall man in a leather jacket. "You're new," he said. His voice was flat, mechanical, but his words bit into me like hooks. "Where's my car?" I croaked. He tilted his half face. "Gone. They always take the car first." "Who's they?" His blurred mouth twitched a smile. "The Hollow." I tried to move past him, but more of the figures shuffled to block the road. Blurry men, women, children.
their presence pressed like static in my head. A woman in a tattered dress spoke. "You fall, you stay. That's the rule. The hollow doesn't give back what it takes." I spun, desperate. "But I don't belong here. I was just driving." Muffled laughter rippled down the line of figures, growing louder until it became a droning sound, a hive buzzing in my ears. The tall man leaned closer, voice cracking like a radio transmission. "You were all just driving." He raised a hand to his chest. For the first time, his features sharpened into clarity. Beneath the shredded leather jacket, a twisted mass of metal and bone jutted from his rib cage, like a steering column had punched straight through him. The road shimmered red beneath my feet. I staggered back and realized I was standing in the middle of a massive blacktop scar. Oil stains and skid marks formed a wide circle around me. The circle was full of wrecked cars, mangled steel half sunken into the ground like fossils. And at the center of it all, towering above the wrecks, was a sign. "Welcome to Hollow Creek. Population growing." Night lasted forever in Hollow Creek, but eventually some crooked imitation of daylight seeped through the fog, pale gray light like the glow of a stalled TV. The town waited for me again. Same abandoned storefronts, same sagging houses, same silence that pushed down on your chest until you couldn't breathe right. But now I walked, since my Ford was gone. Every step echoed too loudly, like the buildings were listening. Down the cracked main street, I passed the diner again. Its windows shattered, booths overturned, but the neon sign still glowed faintly. "Betty's open." The door squeaked open as I walked past. I didn't dare look inside. Instead, I followed the sound that had been dogging me since I woke, that lullaby, Eleanor's song, crackling like it came through cheap speakers, drifting from somewhere deeper in town. The trail led to an old brick building at the far edge of Hollow Creek. Its roof sagged inward and weeds pushed through the steps, but a brass plaque still clung by rusted screws. Hollow Creek Elementary. My stomach turned sour. Inside, the air was damp, smelling of mold and rot. Desks overturned, chalkboards cracked down the middle, children's drawings still taped along the walls, smiling suns, shaky houses, crooked stick figures holding hands. The song grew louder, not from speakers, from voices. Children's voices. I pushed open a classroom door and every muscle in me froze. Rows of children sat neatly in desks, 40, 50 of them, their skin gray, their eyes hollow black pits. Each one sang Eleanor's lullaby in perfect unison, heads swaying side to side. And standing in front of the chalkboard was Eleanor herself. She looked taller now, almost adult. Her draped white dress was spotless, like it had been freshly ironed. Her hair shimmered, dark and smooth, no longer slicked with water. Her eyes lit as she saw me. "You stayed." I shook my head. "No, I fell. You dragged me down." Eleanor's smile widened. "Everyone needs a teacher, even the lost." Behind her, the chalkboard scrawled itself in long, jagged white lines. "Stay, stay, stay." One of the children raised a hand. Eleanor nodded to her. "Yes, Emily." The girl's cracked voice whispered, "When do we go home?" Eleanor's smile didn't falter. "You are home."
The children nodded in unison, hollow voices muttering, "We are home! We are home!" I stumbled back, throat closing. "What the hell are you?" I hissed. Eleanor stepped closer. Her face shifted as she moved, flickering through ages. A child, a teenager, a woman, something older, endless. I am the one who walks the road, the hitchhiker, the passenger, the lost. I am every girl they drove past, every ghost they ignored. I am the lesson for every traveler who thinks the world ends at their own headlights.
And you're mine now. Instinct took control. I bolted, crashing through desks as the children's voices rose into a shriek. Small hands clawed at my clothes as I shoved through, their touch freezing my skin. I tore down cracked hallways, through collapsing stairwells, until I burst back into the ash-gray light outside. The lullaby chased me, piping from broken windows, vibrating up through the ground. I didn't know where I was going, just away. But there is no away in Hollow Creek. By dusk, or whatever passed for it, I stumbled into a stretch of land fenced with rusted wire, a cemetery. Rows of sunken headstones jetted through weeds, the names eroded or scratched out. At the center, a large monument leaned, a cracked angel with its face eroded off. Below it, a slate slab read only, Eleanor, 1952. My breath hitched. If she died in 1952, who was the girl I'd picked up? I crouched by the stone, my hands trembling. That's when shadows flicked across the graves. Not just one, dozens. The townsfolk again, blurred figures weaving between headstones, circling me. And above all of it, Eleanor's voice booming, not whispered, not sung, but screamed into the hollow air. You will not leave. Hollow Creek is forever. The ground beneath me shifted. Graves split, dirt churned, hands clawed upward, rotted, skeletal, blackened with tar. Dozens, hundreds, dragging themselves into the moonless sky. The children from the school, the figures from the diner, the townsfolk from the gas station. Even Murphy, the mechanic, his cracked skin blowing ember red. All whispering now, all gazes locked on me. Stay, stay, stay! And over them, Eleanor rising from her grave, not as a girl, but as something monumental. Her figure stretched, tall as the church steeple, skin pale marble cracked with seams of black fire. Her eyes pierced miles, and her voice shattered the cemetery air. You were chosen the moment you took the road. You thought you could leave your life behind, but the road doesn't forget. It takes, and it keeps. The world spun. I realized then, Hollow Creek wasn't just a place. It was a collection. A pit for the lost, the runaways, the guilty. Every soul who tried to escape their life eventually stumbled into the same fog, the same girl in white, the same road that never ended. And now I was one of them. The graves pulled at my legs. Cold dirt rose like water, dragging me down inch by inch. I clawed at the ground, screaming, fighting until my fingers bled. Eleanor leaned closer, her giant stone-cracked face blotting out everything else. You will not leave. But inside me, somehow a fire sparked. No, I wouldn't be another blurred figure lining the road. I screamed back into her face, the words ripping from me like shrapnel. You don't own me! The ground stopped moving. The
The figures shuddered. For just a moment, Hollow Creek faltered. The fog peeled back. I saw highways again, stretching out into real night, with stars above and the sound of crickets in the fields. And then Eleanor's scream tore all of it away. The last thing I remember that night was black fire swallowing me whole. When the fire swallowed me, I thought it was death. Black heat seared through my body, yet I didn't burn. I dissolved. And then I woke up in my car. The Ford hummed under my hands, headlights cut the dark in crisp beams. My phone buzzed with notifications in the cup holder, like I had never left the real world. Chicago radio hummed through the speakers, a country station playing songs about beer, mud, and lost dogs. My knuckles turned white as I gripped the wheel. "No," I whispered. I pulled off to the shoulder. Fresh night air poured through the window, crickets chirping in fields beyond. Stars glittered overhead. Civilization existed again. I checked the dash clock. 10:42 p.m., local time. Normal. Maybe it was all a hallucination, a fever dream while driving too long. Maybe I'd nodded off and swerved. My brain stitched nightmare tapestries to explain it. That was the most logical thing. But then I looked at the passenger seat. It was wet. A faint puddle seeped into the fabric. The outline of someone sitting there still glistened under the dash lights. The smell of river water filled my lungs. I drove for 20 more minutes, grasping at logic like a rope. My GPS lit again, chirping out directions like nothing had ever gone wrong. Signs returned. Billboards lit the highway. Then I saw it. Same old rust-stained sign. Murphy's Fill-Up, an ancient gas station glowing faintly on the horizon. Except this time, it wasn't burned. No black tar pumps, no fire, no ember-skinned mechanic, just a normal, slightly run-down lot. Still, I pulled in, pulse spiking. My car needed fuel and maybe, God help me, I needed confirmation that the nightmare was gone. The door creaked as I stepped out. Crisp Missouri night washed over me. The buzz of fluorescent bulbs hummed faintly above. The pump worked normally, steady stream of gasoline filling the tank. The nozzle snapped back without issue. I almost relaxed. Almost. Then the window of the gas station lit. Murphy stood inside, flipping an ancient newspaper. His head jerked up, and his gaze caught mine through the window.
He smiled, and his cracked, ember-scorched face flickered through for half a second before looking normal again. I scrambled back to the driver's seat, heart hammering. Before I could key the ignition, a knock rattled the passenger window. I flinched. A man stood there, wild-eyed, hands pressed against the glass. He looked about 50. Scruffy beard, sun-beaten skin, flannel shirt. "Hey!" he shouted. "Open up! Please, for God's sake, let me in!" I hesitated. "I'm not from here," he shouted, desperation cracking his voice. "I was just driving through, like you. They won't let me out. Please!" Something in his eyes told me he was real, like me, not a blurred figure, not one of them. Cursing under my breath, I unlocked the door. He scrambled in, slamming it shut, panting hard. His smell was sweat, dirt, motor oil, human. Thank Christ, I thought I was the only one left. His name was Jason. He'd been driving a rig out of Tulsa, hauling appliances north. Somewhere outside of St. Louis, the fog rolled in. Same story. Same diner, same girl in white. When I saw her on the road, Jason muttered, knuckles shaking on his knees, I thought I was hitting a kid, swerved straight into the ditch. But when I came to, my rig was gone, like it never existed, and I was stuck here. How long ago? I asked. 3 days? Maybe a week. Hard to tell. Feels like years. Silence pooled between us. Finally, I asked the question that had been hammering at me since the bridge. What is this place? Jason's tired eyes slid toward me. It's a catch basin. Runoff for everyone trying to escape themselves. You on the road, thinking you're running from something? Hollow Creek finds you, sucks you in, leaves you circling forever. We drove together in silence for a stretch, two normal men in an abnormal nightmare, clinging to the wheel like it was the only solid thing left in existence. After a half hour, the road split up ahead. 2 signs hung overhead, each riddled with bullet holes. Left, Hollow Creek. Right, US 61, St. Louis. Jason chuckled darkly. That sign don't mean what you think. I slowed the Ford. The right turn practically glowed with ordinary salvation. Car headlights in the distance, hum of highway traffic, neon flickering. Jason shook his head. I took that turn once. Every time I thought I made it out, I circled back here. You'll always find her waiting. Her? I asked. His mouth tightened. Eleanor. We chose left. Better to walk straight into the nightmare than lull ourselves into false hope. The road led us deeper into Hollow Creek, back into the warped town we both swore we'd left behind. The diner loomed again, the motel vacancy sign flickered, the schoolhouse towered like a sentinel. We stopped in front of the graveyard. Jason shifted, uneasy. You ever think, he muttered, that maybe we don't escape? That the only way is through her? The words buried themselves into me. Eleanor wasn't just a ghost. She wasn't just a girl. She was the key, the gatekeeper of this trap. The only question, what did she want? Jason looked at me, voice shaking. She's waiting for a deal. That's what they told me. Murphy, Betty, the blurred ones. Every soul in Hollow Creek. You can't just outrun her. You gotta give her what she wants. The lights of the cemetery glowed faint. Candles flickered among the graves where there hadn't been any before. And then she came. No longer small, no longer shifting. Eleanor stepped into the pale glow, her dress dragging over stones, her black eyes locked on me. Jason hissed through his teeth, fear tightening his face. You see her, right? I asked. He nodded quickly. Oh yeah, every damn day. Eleanor tilted her head, a child studying ants. You brought another? She said in that layered, cavernous voice. Yeah, I whispered, and we're not staying. Her smile cracked wider, voice spilling like cold water. There is no leaving, not for the guilty, not for the lost, not for those who run. Jason spat on the ground. Then what do you want from us? Her gaze slid to him, sharp enough to slice. Everything. The ground trembled, graves shifted, whispering voices rising. Figures gathered around us, blurred men, blank-faced families, hollow children, all smiling. Eleanor took another step closer. One of you stays fully. One of you gives yourself to us. The other walks out. Her eyes glowed black fire. My road demands balance. Jason swore under his breath. I stood frozen. It was a choice.
If one of us gave in, the other would be released. Maybe free. Maybe just spat back out into the real world. Headlights lighting cornfields again. But which one? Jason's face twisted. He looked at me, then at her. "How do we know you're telling the truth?" he demanded. Eleanor's head tilted. "You don't, but it's the only offer you'll hear." Jason's chest rose and fell. His eyes darted. His jaw clenched. And in that moment, I knew. He was considering it. Not sacrificing himself, sacrificing me. Jason lunged. His knife appeared from nowhere, flashing silver in the candlelight. He swung hard, aiming for my throat. I fought back, hands up, the blade slicing my forearm. Blood splattered warm. The crowd of blurred figures howled with laughter. Eleanor watched, smile splitting her jaw wide. Jason screamed, "I can't stay here forever! Better you than me!" We grappled, rolling against cracked tombstones, dirt flying. His hand pressed cold steel closer to my neck. And then, like lightning, another hand gripped his wrist. Eleanor's hand. She wrenched the knife away like it was paper. Her black eyes drilled into Jason, her voice splitting the cemetery air. "You've already chosen." Jason's scream lanced the night as the ground devoured him. Dirt yawned open, pulling him down into the grave marked Eleanor. His body twisted, disappearing into shadow. The soil closed, silent. I collapsed against a headstone, gasping, bleeding. Eleanor stood above me, calm now, voice quieter. Balance kept. I spat blood. "So what about me?" She knelt, placing a hand like ice against my chest. "You may walk." The graves hushed. The blurred figures vanished into mist. The fog peeled back from the cemetery gates, revealing highways glittering in the distance. For a moment, it looked real. Freedom. Eleanor's eyes softened, almost human. "But remember," she whispered, "the hollow is not a place. It is a road, and every road leads back to me." When Eleanor whispered, "You may walk," I didn't believe her. But the cemetery gates yawned wide, fog peeling away like curtains lifting at the start of a play. Beyond was a highway lit by the kind of amber street lamps that hummed warm, the kind that meant civilization. They stretched in a neat line, a runway leading me home. I forced my legs to move, one step, then another, refusing to look back at her pale figure framed in shifting graves. When I crossed the threshold, the air changed instantly. Crisp, real. The weight that clung to my chest since Hollow Creek loosened just enough for me to take a deep breath. I found myself standing at the edge of Interstate 55, the real I-55. Green signs marked exits towards St. Louis. Real cars hummed past, their headlights cutting through the Missouri night. I laughed like a lunatic. I'd made it out. But I should have known better by now. My first thought was gas. My Ford still sat parked just outside the cemetery gates, keys in the ignition, like it had been waiting for me the whole time. I drove south, headlights trailing other cars for the first time in forever, almost weeping when I saw normal roadside businesses. McDonald's, Holiday Inn, Pilot Travel Center. Friendly, fluorescent banality. I pulled into the next gas station, stumbling out to fill my tank. When the nozzle clicked, I turned, scanning the bright store windows. Kids arguing over candy. A man in a ball cap paid for cigarettes. The red-shirt clerk smiled politely at an old woman buying lotto tickets. All of it so boring.
so blessedly familiar. I walked in, grabbed a bottled water and a sandwich, and stood in line like a man reborn. The clerk rang me up without even glancing at me. "That'll be $6.42. Her voice prickled something deep in me. I froze. When she finally looked up, I saw them, eyes black as tar. I staggered backward, nearly knocking over a rack of chips. The other customers turned slowly, one by one, faces blurring, features smudging into the waxy half-shapes of Hollow Creek. The clerk smiled, just wide enough to split her cheeks. "Thought you left, didn't you?" The walls pulsed. Fluorescent lights flickered. The air smelled of mildew. "No, I didn't," I whispered. The other customers whispered louder. "Stay, stay, stay." I bolted, slamming through the glass doors into the night. My Ford sat alone in the lot. No other cars, no other highways. Beyond the pumps, fog boiled back. Like a curtain falling, the real world collapsed again. Signs, exits, billboards gone. Only blacktop stretching endless into the mist. I drove. I screamed. I pounded the steering wheel until my knuckles bled. There was no escape. No out. Eleanor's words rang through my skull. "The Hollow is not a place. It is a road, and every road leads back to me." I thought of Jason, swallowed into dirt. I thought of Murphy, the school children, the blurred townsfolk. All of them, once like me.
The worst thought hit me then. Maybe they had escaped years ago. Maybe each time they thought they were free, the Hollow yanked them back again and again until they gave up. A circular trap, infinite, and now it was my turn to spin inside it until I broke. I laughed until I cried, until the road ahead rippled, until shapes rose out of the fog. A house waited just off the road, white clapboard, porch light glowing soft yellow. A place I knew instantly, though I'd never been there. My childhood home. In Ohio. Every detail was right. The chipped gutters, the screen door with a bullet hole punched by a BB gun, the crooked wind chime Mom had hung when I was 8. My Ford coasted to a stop before I even touched the brakes. Heart hammering, I climbed out and stepped onto the lawn. The door creaked open. "Who's there?" Mom's voice called from inside. I nearly collapsed. She stood there in her robe, hair grayer than I remembered, but face the same. Lines warm, eyes tired. No blur, no shadow. Just her. "Mom?" My voice cracked. Her mouth fell open. "Oh my God! Michael?" I hadn't heard my own name in days, weeks, eternity. I stumbled forward, hugging her as tears broke loose. For one dizzying moment, it felt real. Her arms wrapped warm around me. Her heartbeat pounded against mine. "You're home," she whispered. I pulled back, staring into her eyes, desperate. "Is this real?" Her smile faltered, just slightly. "Of course it is. You're home." But her eyes flickered black for the briefest millisecond. She made me sit at the dinner table. I shouldn't have, but grief and hunger and longing sat heavier than fear. The table was dressed perfectly. Roast chicken, potatoes, peas, a bottle of wine, plates laid for 2. I ate like a starving wolf. The meat tasted rich, the peas buttery, the potatoes salted right.
But under it all was something else, a tang of rust, the sting of rot. Mom watched me, smiling too wide now, not touching her own plate. "You can stay as long as you like," she said warmly. Those words. I froze mid-bite. I set my fork down. "You're not her." Silence stretched heavy. Her smile curled sharper. "No, but I wear her well, don't I?" Her voice shifted into Eleanor's, layered and endless. The walls melted, the house sagged into rotting wood, drywall peeling. The food on my plate crawled with maggots, and across from me sat Eleanor in her white dress, hands folded neatly, eyes black pits. "I told you," she whispered, "every road leads back to me." I bolted from the table, stumbling back outside. The road waited, always the road. My Ford sat ready. Eleanor stood calmly in the rear view, smiling as fog curled higher, swallowing her. The radio crackled alive even though I had ripped the wires days ago. Her voice whispered through the static. Not music, not lullabies anymore. Just her voice, softer now, not like a monster, more like a truth I didn't want spoken. "You can't keep running. You know why you're here. Say it." I gritted my teeth, staring at the road, pressing harder on the gas. "Say it," her voice demanded. I screamed into the windshield. "Shut up!" The headlights flickered, and the world changed. Suddenly, I wasn't on a highway. I was back in Chicago. Rain's slick asphalt shined beneath flickering street lamps. My old neighborhood block, graffiti-tagged alleys, cramped apartments stacked like coffins. The car rolled to a stop on its own. I knew exactly where I was. The alley. That alley. I killed the ignition, heart hammering. I wanted to keep driving straight into the fog, but my door popped open by itself. Cold rain hit my face as if the hollow itself pulled me out. I stumbled into the alley, footsteps echoing, trash cans, broken glass, and there, frozen in time like mannequins, two men I used to know. Kyle and Deshaun. Friends, business partners, once. Deshaun stood laughing, pointing at me. Kyle leaned against brick, cigarette glowing. Their shadows stretched unnaturally long, faces blurred until the fog peeled them sharp again. Then I saw him, the man on the ground. Blood had pooled across the concrete. His chest didn't rise. His eyes were wide open, staring straight up at me, just like they had that night. "No," I whispered. "Not this. Not here." But Eleanor's voice sighed from everywhere at once. "This is the mile marker you refuse to pass. You say you are running from debts, from lies, from her. But this is the truth. This is why the hollow found you." I fell to my knees beside him, the dead man, the one I tried never to remember. Black market deals, secret meetings. I knew money had been missing. I thought someone was double-crossing us. I was drunk, paranoid, tired of everyone trying to corner me. And when the man shoved me, when I felt the weight of the knife in my hand, I acted. It happened fast then. One quick stab, then another. My rage went blind. By the time Kyle pulled me off, by the time Deshaun stopped shouting, the man was already gone. And instead of confessing, instead of facing it, I ran. Road trip, escape, new beginning. That was the plan. Only beginnings don't erase endings. She stepped into the alley, dress dragging in the rain, eyes black lanterns. "Now you understand."
couldn't breathe, staring at my hands like the blood just landed there fresh. I didn't mean to, she cut me off. You did, and guilt isn't erased by speed. Sins don't dull on the open road, they sharpen. The hollow doesn't hunt at random. It only takes those who try to outdrive their shadows. Her footsteps splashed closer until she stood above me. Pale hands offered again. This doesn't have to be punishment. Stay, and the hollow will take away the weight. You will forget what you did, same as Jason, same as Murphy, same as all the others. Her gaze pierced me. Confess and stay, or deny and drive until you break. The rain hammered harder. Kyle and Deshawn's frozen shapes smoked away to ash, leaving me alone with the body. The dead man's lifeless eyes locked on mine. The hollow offered erasure, peace, numbness, release. I could walk into it and everything would vanish. Every horrible memory, every scar. My body sagged. For the first time, I felt the weight of exhaustion heavier than fear. Days of running, days of endless roads. Maybe staying wasn't hell. Maybe it was mercy. I almost reached for her hand. Almost. A horn blared. I spun, blinking through the rain. Down the alley, headlights cut bright. A real car, the sound of tires splashing, wipers flicking. And at the wheel, through the blurred windshield, someone real, flesh and bone. They couldn't see Eleanor. Couldn't see me. Just another dark alley in a city full of them. But the lights reminded me of something Eleanor hadn't planned. Choice. She was right. I'd killed a man. I ran, and I'd been running ever since. But I'm done giving you what you want. My guilt doesn't belong to you. It belongs to me. Her face froze. I will confess it myself. Not here, not in your hollow, in the real world, to real people. I'll sit in a cell and rot if I have to, but I won't stay with you. The rain stopped. Dead silence pressed the alley. Eleanor's eyes darkened, shifting like pits collapsing. For the first time since I saw her, her mask cracked. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Then drive, and don't look back. The alley collapsed, dissolving into smoke. My Ford rumbled under me again. The highway stretched forward, clean and unbroken, dawn scraping thin gold lines across the fog. I didn't know if this was another trick, another layer, another cycle, but I drove anyway. For the first time, the fog grew thinner with every mile. Police sirens hummed faint in the distance. Sunlight touched the edges of clouds. Maybe it was real. Maybe not. But I was heading for the one place I'd avoided my whole life. The truth. And behind me, whispered, so faint it might have been imagination, Eleanor's voice lingered. Every road leads to me. Even this one. The fog thinned more with every mile. For the first time since Chicago, I saw a real sunrise. Weak orange light bled through cracked clouds, casting the world in color again. Greens of trees, browns of soil, glittering silver of passing guardrails. The hollow recoiled from the sun. For miles I drove without interruption. No blurred figures lining the shoulder, no girls in white dresses, no diners buzzing with static radios. Just road, straight, endless, blessedly empty. And yet, I couldn't shake one thought. Was this freedom, or just another mask? 2 hours later, I saw them.
Flashing lights in the rear view, red and blue strobing. My chest tightened. After days of emptiness, the sight of another vehicle felt otherworldly. But this was real, had to be real. I slowed, pulling to the shoulder. Gravel crunched under my tires. The cruiser stopped behind me, door opening with a heavy thunk. Boots on gravel. Then a voice, steady and stern. "Sir, license and registration." I looked up into a face lined with age, eyes sharp, uniform crisp. A Missouri State Trooper. Not blurred, not glowing, not hollow. Human. Hand shaking, I gave him what he asked for. He scanned my license, then fixed me with a look that pierced through my headache and exhaustion. "You know you've been weaving, right? Look like you haven't slept in a week." I barked a laugh. "More than that." He frowned. "Where are you headed?" I opened my mouth, thought of New Orleans. Excuses, lies. But then Eleanor's whisper slithered through the radio, faint and mocking. "Confess." And for once, I didn't fight it. I looked the trooper dead in the eye. "I killed a man. Back in Chicago, years ago. Stabbed him. Left him for dead. And I ran." He froze, posture stiffening. "You say what I think I just heard?" Tears spilled before I could stop them. "Yes, sir. I killed him. And I couldn't live with it anymore. So if you're real, if this is real, take me in." For a long moment, silence hung heavy between us, the only sound the hiss of morning wind against my Ford. Then he nodded once. "Step out of the vehicle." I obeyed. Handcuffs ratcheted cold against my wrists. The weight didn't feel like punishment. It felt like release. The next hours blurred into motion, reading of rights, a backseat ride in the cruiser, fingerprint ink staining my skin. My story repeated, written into reports, recorded for tape. Chicago PD confirmed a cold case they never closed. Every step felt unreal, but not in the Hollow Creek way. No static, no fog, just dull bureaucracy, fluorescent lights, coffee-stained papers. Reality in its ugliest, safest form. When they locked me in the holding cell, I sank to the cot and smiled for the first time in forever, because I was finally somewhere Eleanor couldn't follow. But that night, lying on a thin mattress behind iron bars, I awoke to dripping. Water pooled beneath the cot, seeping cold into my shoes. The cell door rattled. Down the corridor, fluorescent light flickered. And then from the far shadows, I heard it. A lullaby. Sweet, familiar. Eleanor's song carried soft as moth wings. I buried my face in my hands. Footsteps echoed, slow, bare. When I lifted my head, she stood there. White dress, clean, hair dry, eyes bottomless. No guard reacted. No officer heard. She was only for me. "You did the right thing," she whispered. "But did you think walls and bars would keep me out?" My heart plummeted. "You confessed. That's good. But you're still mine, Michael, because guilt doesn't end in handcuffs. Guilt doesn't rot away in prison. It stays. And as long as it stays, the road always comes back for you." She smiled, wider than ever. "Every road leads to me." I blinked, and she was gone. The puddle dried, the lullaby silenced. I sat alone in my cell, head spinning. Was she right? Had I beaten the Hollow by facing my sins? Or simply walked on to another twisted stretch of her endless highway, this one called prison, another version of Hollow Creek? I don't know. All I know is that I confessed. That part was mine. The choice was mine. And sometimes late at night, when the guards are dozing and the fluorescent lights flicker, I hear it again, soft, drifting through the vents. Her song. And I wonder if the hollow highway isn't out there waiting anymore, but inside me now.